Hi, everybody. Good morning to some of you. Good
Yay.
evening to others. We are here at OnyxPathCon, and we are the first stream. So we are really excited to get hype for OnyxPathCon. There's all sorts of amazing things going on. But before we dive into that, I would like to introduce my lovely co-host, Lysa. Lysa, can you tell the fine folks at home, tell them this is going to go great. Can you tell the fine folks at home who you are, what you do, and some cool stuff about you?
Yeah, my name is Lysa Penrose. You probably know me as the brand manager over at Dungeon Masters Guild. And in general, I just do lots of D&D stuff. I also write my own games. And yeah, TTRPG, all the things, all the hats.
All the hats. Many
I'm
hats.
hungry today.
Yes.
Everyone in chat, tell me what snacks you brought us.
Yes, it's very
and
important.
then put them in your USB drives. I'll wait.
Yeah, they'll be here soon, Lysa. They'll be here by the end of the stream, probably. For those of you that are joining us, like we said, this is OnyxPathCon. Thank you so much for hanging out. So just kind of to go over a couple of things. This con is all weekend. There are panels, like tons of panels, loads of panels. And actual plays, and it's just like from Dork Tales and Occults Anonymous and Vorpal Tales, and there's just so much going on. So this is just one cool stream out of all the other ones that are happening. And with their streams too, for their panels, they have like writing horror games. What's up with Onyx Path, which is always a great panel because you get to see what's going on and what's coming up. Q&A, art and design, which is, not to be biased, kind of my favorite. So definitely check that out too. So yeah, that's what's going on. And also, Onyx Path has created 8 gazillion bundle deals and sales going on this week. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but there's a lot. There is this week's big release was Trinity Continuum Aberrant, which is very exciting. A lot of people have been waiting for that. And also too, happening now is the Exalted Essence Kickstarter. And then for the sales and bundles deals, not 1, not 2, Lysa, but 14 PDF bundles on DriveThruRPG, and it has RPGs and fiction. You can check that out at drivethrurpg.com. There are 14 ding dang bundles, so whatever you're looking for, this is the place to do it. And those are on sale as well. Oh, I should introduce myself. I always forget to introduce myself. I'm always so hyped. My name is Meredith Gerber. I am the Century Publisher Relations Rep at DriveThruRPG. I am also social media manager over at Yisford Games, which is an indie video game publisher, and also a freelancer for Onyx Path. I've done art direction and I've done some writing, so which is very fun. And yeah, Onyx Path is a fantastic company. So let's get into it. I hope everybody brought some food for Lysa. It's very important.
I just had coffee today, but Meredith said that she was bringing food, so I'm ready.
I'm ready. So, last time this happened, I was with Mike Tomasek, who's actually a freelance writer as well. He's done Trial by Night. He's done Cults of the Blood Gods, and he's pretty rad and pretty amazing. And last time we did this book, Mage the Ascension. I always want to say Awakening. I was actually talking about it just now because I love both so much. Mage the Ascension 20th Anniversary Edition Cookbook. And that's last time we made a pizza. So you can get that available on DriveThru. But this time, we're doing Werewolf. The Werewolf Cookbook, which is really exciting. There's a lot of really good recipes in these. And I was telling Lysa before we got in here, the nice thing about these recipes is they can be modified. I modified today because I realized that I was out of a specific item. So very important. Today I made from the Fianna section. I shouldn't say I made, Mike Tomasek, freelance writer, and developer, made it. He's an incredible chef, cook / baker. But I made apple pie today. But unfortunately, you're supposed to mix it with heavy cream and apple brandy, 2 items that I forgot to get. So we made an apple tart. So I'm really excited. And here it
I want
is.
to see it. Oh, that's so pretty.
Isn't it pretty? He did such a good job. Like, it's really fantastic, and it's caramelized a little bit too. Apple tarts are super easy to make as well. The recipe is pretty simplistic. So the thing that's missing is you make a cream that you put on top. But yeah, this is what I have brought today. And I love apples and fruit. They're like my favorite food. It's so, so good. I did make enough for Lysa as well. We have a slice on the oven for you. So if you want to,
I'll be right there.
obviously. Just going from boom from the never eat sour watermelon. Though West Coast me, absolutely. In Chicago, you'll get here super, super quick. So Lysa,
Yes.
you had a chance to read over this as well. What kind of recipes jumped out at you?
Okay. Well, it's the Werewolf Cookbook. So I was like, is it all just going to be like raw meat?
Fair.
But no, there's tons of different recipes. There's like stuffed peppers. And while I don't eat meat, the chicken and peanut curry sounded really good. But I was particularly excited that in the appendix, they have a whole recipe for making seitan, which is a meat substitute. So I feel like you could make that. It's also a recipe where you bake it rather than boil it, if there's any like vegan nerds in the chat right now. So you could make that to substitute into any of the recipes also if you want to make your own meat substitute. I've heard it's not as intimidating as I would have thought to make seitan.
Awesome.
There's also an agadashi tofu, which just sounds really, really delightful.
Could you go into that a little bit more, please?
Which one? The tofu?
The tofu.
Okay, let's go to page 50. Oh, sorry, I stopped at the prawn dim sum also. It's got prawns and mushrooms.
You love mushrooms.
Yeah, I really like mushrooms. Okay. So the agadashi tofu, and I really hope I'm saying this right because I'm saying it so much, has tofu, but really the star is the dashi stock, which you also mix with some soy sauce and mirin, which is a sweet rice wine.
Nice.
And they have a topping. So it's not even just the sauce and this tofu, but they also have scallions and grated daikon, which is sort of like a radish, I guess. Yeah, it's a radish, a white radish that you grate and you put on top of this fried tofu. Wow, I really should have had breakfast. I'm like drooling. It's hard to talk now.
Oh man. Okay. All right. So definitely in talking about food, what are ways that because a lot of times like people will look at this cookbook and be like, why should it matter type of deal? And I think that food can be incorporated definitely in play, right? Like it doesn't have to be this, you make the whole werewolf spread. Like you can play a werewolf game and like maybe make a dish, you know. What have you ever like used like food? Like I always think of like Dungeons and Dragons too, like taverns and stuff like that, and like doing special stuff. Have you ever like done that, like where you've done like theme things?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I think about food and games, 2 things come to mind. First, and I think that's really apparent in both the Mage Cookbook and the Werewolf Apocalypse Cookbook, is that food can be a way of communicating culture. I mean, it's such an important part of, I feel like pretty much every culture, they have their own traditions. So the types of ingredients that folks use that are available in regions or how they combine flavors can be a really good way of communicating that in the game. But I also feel like, especially as we all start getting into the groove of meeting in person again, or even if you're still doing Zoom games and you want everyone to feel a little bit more immersed, having even just one dish that is themed for a game, like making a little tavern menu and actually having snacks and food there for folks in an in-person game is a really fun way to immerse yourself.
Absolutely.
Have you ever had a game where like the food was on point and on theme?
Yes. We are so I have some friends in Iowa that we go see like once a year, and we make a weekend of it. It's actually like we have a whole menu and it's catered to whatever we're playing. So this time when we go to Iowa safely in the future, we are going to be doing a Chicago by Night Vampire the Masquerade game. And so what Josh is his name is doing is he came up with recipes from Chicago chefs of Chicago food. Um, so which is really, really cool. And it's really exciting because you get kind of hype about it and it kind of puts you in the mood too. I mean, like I'm always in the mood for Chicago. I live here. But it's kind of nice and I guess adds more like an atmosphere to it, like where you just are a little bit more immersed a little bit more, which I think is really awesome. And yeah, and like we make menus and all the stuff that we do too. We've done that for Little Fears as well. We've done that for Iowa and that's another thing with immersion where Josh, was a storyteller in Little Fears. For those who haven't played, is a game where you're a kid and there are monsters is all I can tell you. And it's absolutely fantastic. But he like took us to the arcade. Like we got our favorite cereal. We watched cartoons. We got to pick a cartoon that was our favorite, our character's favorite. So it's very cool in that regard. And I think that to go back on that food is kind of cool to incorporate. Absolutely. So yes, the answer is yes, Lysa. I have.
Absolutely. Oh, well.
Yeah, go. Go.
I also feel like everyone likes snacks at their games. And so why not add rather than the finger foods and everything being a distraction from the game, making it themed for the game, so it adds that extra layer of just immersing yourself in role playing.
Yeah.
And in addition to food, I know we're talking about the Werewolf Cookbook today, but just to call out in the Mage Cookbook, since I was skimming it, if you are one for like adult drinks, there's a bunch of different cocktails in this one. So how fun is that? If you like that aspect of the game as well, I know. It is for some.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I actually had a discussion with Justice, one of our mutual buds, about that. That the other thing too is if your players are not into alcohol, you can make things that are mocktails, and mocktails are awesome because they're fancy and you feel really cool drinking them because they're all sorts of cool colors and you put garnishes and things like that. And they're good. I will never turn down a kitty cocktail. I will order a kitty cocktail at 34 every time. Anytime I go to a con, I like walk up to the bar and I'm like, kitty cocktail. Very confident.
Really, I just want a glass of grenadine.
Yeah, or a glass of grenadine.
I see Hot Dog Wizard in chat says that they specifically are trying to cook more inclusively for their vegan players. So I'll also say, I was
going to say, you're in luck because Lysa Penrose is here. But go on, Lysa.
That I also then want to call out the Mage Cookbook, which has a recipe that I really want to try. That is a cashew curry cheese using aquafaba, or is it aquafaba? You pronounce it like a V? I'm not sure, but it's basically like the liquid when you cook chickpeas. And I know of it because I used to be really into making French macarons. And that's based on egg whites, right?
Wow.
But aquafaba will whip up like egg whites. And so I just thought that was such a like weird specific niche thing for this cookbook to have. So there are some like, I think that's indicative of like how the recipes are pretty cool and legit. So I would definitely check them out.
Lysa, do you have any other like vegan secrets that or
Oh
things
no.
that you like that you would bring to let's say you're setting up a game, everything is safe, everyone's vaccinated, and all things are wonderful in the world. What would be like your top like vegan dishes that we'd bring to a game? Like what do you love to death?
Goodness. Well, I mean, there's so many different dishes. I will say, okay, like my if I'm giving everyone like the secret vegan deets, my
Okay.
favorite thing right now are these things called soy curls. Uh you've probably never heard of them because they are, I mean, honestly, they're probably in Asia. But in the States, they're basically only a Portland thing. Outside of Portland, there's a factory that makes them out of soybeans grown in the US. And like only they make them. So I've only ever seen them in the States in Portland. We just bought like a bulk thing of them, um, which I don't know where we're going to fit in our kitchen, to be honest. But you rehydrate them and they're a really tasty meat substitute, sort of like almost like a chicken stir fry, like when chicken's cut in that way, sort of texture. So if you're trying to make something that feels a little heartier, and you want to try to introduce your non-vegan friends to something with a super legit vegan food, I would definitely check out soy curls, my fave.
Ooh, that sounds like really good.
Yeah.
um
I'm
would you
mad that we're talking about food so much, even though
I'm
that's literally what
sorry,
I signed
Lysa,
up
you
for.
signed up for it. You literally like,
Uh,
absolutely, I will be there. I will be there with bells
yeah.
on. Oh man, that's
Yeah.
so good. Um, that's a really good choice too, and really, really awesome. So,
Can I
yeah, we
read this
can.
comment in chat?
You can read whatever
Yao
comments in
Dad
chat.
too.
You're the co-host.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
Do
But
it.
I love this. Last year in my Star Trek game, the captain wanted to make an event where crew members brought meals from their cultures. My players were actually intense enough that they did research on their characters' alien cultures and actually brought appropriate dishes to the next game. Uh, my girlfriend's Plumex soup is delicious, which is funny because the point of Plumex soup is to be tasteless.
That's awesome. That's really
That's so
cool.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah, if y'all have ever, incorporated food like into your games, like let's hear about it. Like that's super, super cool. And that's an interesting way to do it instead of it being like as over encompassing, like being like, okay, we're gonna play, Star Trek, so bring Star Trek themed, you know what I mean? Like, but this was cool that they went a step deeper and said, okay, like your character, what's going on with your character, and I think that's really fun, so
What a
that's cool.
fun way to get to know your character a little bit better on a level that you probably wouldn't otherwise delve into, because why else would it come up? But I feel like that has got to inform your role playing as
Yeah.
well, to learn about the culture that your
Mhm.
character came from.
Absolutely, yeah, like are they bakers, are they cooks, you know what I mean, like what it's famous in that area, and like that's really, really cool. Dixie Cyanide says my favorite thing to do for potlucks is to make vegan chili and bring sour cream cheese and maybe bacon bits if anyone wants to de-veganize it. Chili is great for everybody. Like
Yes.
so good. And it's so hearty too. Like so it's good for long session games too, like where you're not gonna have a lot of breaks and things like that. I mean, you should always have breaks, obviously, but you know what I mean. So that's really, really good. But I think that's really awesome. So yeah, awesome. All right. So um, let's switch gears a little bit and talk about community content because Onyx Path has community content, and Lysa is a master of community content over at DM's Guild. And something that I want to bring up too is that when we talk about community content, yes, the rules are different. When Lysa and I are talking about two different things, the rules are different. Lysa is on the D&D side, and I'm more on a different side with different, systems and settings. But there's a lot of similarities between all of them. And I think that is important to talk about. If you ever wanted to either get started in writing, or if you were like, I have this brilliant idea, that happened during my campaign that I want to write about, community content's a really good place to do that. And I think that a lot of it can look like a lot, but it's so much fun to do, and you make money, which is great. I always say, like, it's money, which is also fun too. But if you have never known, I'm pulling them up right now. If you've never known that OnyxPath does have community content programs, several actually, including one of my favorites, which is Canis Minor, which is great because that's the Pugmire monarchies of Mao 1. And I just got a secret message from somebody, but I won't name who it is. But the secret message says, cookbooks are allowed on Storyteller's Vault and StoryPath Nexus if someone wants to make one like the official cookbook. So if you have super cool ideas, I saw somebody today who was like, there isn't a vampire cookbook. Well, my friends, you can make them. So that's definitely something to check out. Yeah. So yeah, StoryPath Nexus, there is Canis Minor, and then of course, our Scarred Lands community content as well. So you have a lot of choices to choose from, but definitely let's chit chat about community content.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, I feel like community content programs are a really great way if you are a game master and you're trying to figure out, how do I make the shift from that to creating published content that others can use and that I can share with the community. I think there's a lot of overlap between being a really good game master and a good designer, but there's also a lot of different skills that it takes to be a good designer. And when you can work inside a system that you know and are comfortable with and really passionate about and used to telling stories within, that is a great training ground. But also, if you just want to stay there, it's a great place to be as a designer too, for learning and honing those skills. And it also comes with a built-in audience or community that you are already a part of, that wants to see new material, potentially, that you create. You mentioned that they also allow for cookbooks. So I want to call out that even on Dungeon Masters Guild, which is for 5th edition D&D, taverns are such a huge part of D&D. So many adventures start in taverns. So I believe we have at least one, I think there's more than one, tavern-based supplement all about like running a tavern or tavern games that includes recipes for making immersive tavern games too. So you can also blend cookbook with RPG supplement, or an adventure that maybe comes with recipes for that match the adventure that you wrote.
I was gonna call out Eyes Unclouded. Lysa knows that I love DM's Guild so much, but I'm always like, I always have that one that, like, for like a good month, I'm like, this is the best. They're all the best. But Eyes Unclouded is a Ghibli inspired book, and I got it, and it has recipes in it, and it's cute and it's cozy and things like that too. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be necessarily, straight, Dungeons and Dragons in the tavern. It doesn't have to be, like straight werewolves you're on a sept. You know what I mean? Like, you can get creative with that. And I think that's really, really cool to play in that playground like that, and you're sharing cool cooking stuff. I always think that's so freaking cool. Like, when people are innovative about that, it's just awesome. It's just great.
Absolutely. And I feel like community content programs are a really good place also to write for a game people are familiar with and that you love, but experiment with formats and how you visualize what this game or what a supplement can be. You can kind of push those boundaries a little bit.
Yeah, all good things. So we talk about that. Lysa, what would be like your top tips for community content if someone is just starting out?
If someone is just starting out, my top tips would be to focus on writing something you're really passionate about. Oftentimes, I'll see people who say, well, someone else just like basically published my idea, but if you really care about that, you probably have your own unique spin. Don't necessarily feel like you have to publish something that's like a hot topic right now, or that you can't do your own take on something that someone else has done. Definitely that. I mean, that's a good tip for writing in general. Second, I would say think about the scope of your first project. A lot of times, especially if you are a GM who's been doing a lot of homebrew run sessions rather than official campaigns or anything like that, you might have a whole world that you want to share with everybody. But that's a really daunting task to write down all the different cultures and lore and organize them in a way other people will understand. There are, I mean, at least for Dungeon Masters Guild as a community content program, you actually can't publish a whole home world, is going to be my third tip, related to my third tip. So I would say starting with an encounter, a single adventure, maybe a one player option, a PDF of a handful of spells you've created. I think the hardest part of community content is crossing the finish line in terms of design and then hitting that publish button. And putting it out into the world. So the more you can limit your scope for that first project, the better your odds that you're going to be able to meet that goal. And then just you can iterate on that and create more things and continue building your creations in that way. And the third thing that I recommend to everyone is please, please read the guidelines for your particular program. Dungeon Masters Guild has a set of guidelines that are linked on the bottom left side of the page. Also, I think the link actually says creator questions or frequently asked questions or FAQ. And you should read those so that I would hate for someone to do a whole bunch of work and then find out there's something big they have to fix, or that their title doesn't belong in Dungeon Masters Guild for some reason.
Right.
And I know Storytellers Vault has similar rules and guidelines that need to be followed about different editions and settings. And so I imagine all community content programs have some sort of guidelines you need to follow. So start there to know what the bounds of the sandbox you're playing in
Right.
is going in.
Yeah, those are really, really hot tips. And reading the guidelines is super, super important. That's the same too. I mean, like when you're a freelancer and you're, applying for a writing position, like if you wanted to, apply to be a writer or an artist at OnyxPath, read the submission guidelines. Like that's super, super important because that, like Lysa mentioned, like that saves you so much work. It saves you so much work. Just follow the guidelines is a good base. And I like your point too about like starting small. Like that's another thing too, is it might seem daunting. Your first one might seem really daunting. So like try something smaller and then kind of branch out from there. And that's a really, really good plan. And also too, if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask them. We're here, we being me and Lysa and our team, essentially, we're here to help you. That's what we are doing. So that's super important as well. And there are communities too. I have to mention that as well, is DM's Guild, Storytellers Vault, OnyxPath has one on their Discord, their official Discord. And that's important too, because leaning on the community is also important, because you have so many people who've already done this before, that if you're like, what am I supposed to do with this? They can be like, oh, it's this, and then someday you'll be that person where you're like, hey, I'm going to help the new people, it's just really, really good. So very, very important. And the last thing I want to touch on too, Lysa, that you mentioned was just because someone else did it. If they didn't do your version though, like Lysa mentioned, like even if you're like, oh, this is so similar to so-and-so's, like it's not they didn't write your game. So, or didn't write your adventure, didn't write your cookbook, so get it out there and have a good time with it. So
yeah,
which is important.
I feel like every designer brings their own style of storytelling. If you're doing your own layout, like you're a one-person team, you're organizing your information differently. Maybe someone has strength in writing prose or creating really great mechanics or making really quirky NPCs. Everyone has different strengths. So even
Absolutely.
if it's an adventure that follows the same like story plot points, there's going to be something different about yours that's going to make it resonate with a player or game master in a way someone else's might not. So put it out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I also want to call out that on Sunday, I'm going to be on a panel all about community content with a few other wonderful folks. And that is at 2:30 Eastern. So if you're curious about learning more about community content, I mean, there's awesome panels all weekend,
Yes.
but I'm biased towards this one.
Yes. Because we're cooking and talking about food, and
Yeah.
Lysa needs to have breakfast. That that should be the sub headline. No, that's all really really good, and yeah, definitely calling out that panel too. It's so good, even if you're someone who's been doing community content. It's good to go to those panels too as refreshers, because Lysa might bring up something that you're like, holy cats, I didn't know I could do that, or oh my gosh, that's a really good idea. And that's important. It's super super important. So yeah. Also with community content too, it's important to, like, the most important thing I think is just get it out there. That's the most important thing. And talk about it.
Mhm.
Tell people about it. That's also important, because you want people to enjoy your stuff. And I think that's why community content is so cool, is because everyone's reading other people's like stories and ideas, and it's very very rad. So
Yeah. I'm also going to give a plug to an organization called Storytelling Collective. Folks might know them as RPG Writer Workshop, which is their old name, but they're coming. If they haven't launched registrations yet, keep an eye out for their Write Your First Adventure workshop. If you want a little more guidance or mentorship, that's a really great program that a lot of people have used to get into community content programs.
yeah, absolutely. And if community content is not your jive and you want to make your own thing, guess what? You can. Because we have sites like Drive Through RPG, Drive Through Fiction, Drive Through Comics, Drive Through Cards, that also, if you have your own system that you want to do, you absolutely can. Lysa has done a book, and I want to hear all about it.
What?
Yes.
Talking about my thing.
Tell me about the
Yeah.
mundanes.
Yeah. So I created my own tiny little system. It's a one-page RPG. Technically, it's two-sided, so I cheat. But it's called Mundane Magic RPG. I wanted to create, well, I guess I should like actually tell people what the game is about, huh? I'm out of practice talking about this. It's almost like you emailed saying you were going to ask me about this, and I didn't prepare at all.
Sure did.
Mundane Magic RPG is a game for 3 players and a game master, and it's all about the 3 players being a powerful coven of fates. So you usually use this loom of destiny to control mortals' lives and make everything flow smoothly and get rid of snags that happen in the timeline. But it is broken. So it is these 3 crones going down to the material plane anytime, any place, maybe even in space, and meddling in mortal lives the old fashioned way with just regular all powerful magic. So you basically get to save the world a little and argue a lot, is kind of how I've been describing the game. And I just created a really simple storytelling system that uses tokens. And the idea is players can use tokens to cast spells. And what I wanted to capture in the game was the ability to like role play and invent your own spells. So you can use tokens to do that. And then those tokens flip over and they become tokens the game master can use to cause consequences to your spells going awry. And once they use them, they flip back over and you can do magic again. So it's like this pendulum of storytelling, basically. And it's on
NBD.
DriveThruRPG.
It is.
Mhm.
That sounds super fun. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
talking about it, which
Thanks
is
for
great.
asking me about it.
Of course. A lot of people are talking about cooking in the chat. We have people eating string cheese, bagel with cream cheese and lox, which I love lox so much.
Lox are my favorite.
And people are putting pizzas in. So good. So good. And yeah, there's so many good food. So Lysa, how did you what inspired you to start cooking?
What inspired me to start cooking? Gosh, necessity to feed myself. I mean, I didn't grow up like cooking in the kitchen with my family. I feel like the one thing my family taught me to make was fried rice, because there was like a Girl Scouts assignment where I had to learn how to make some sort of Chinese food because my family's from China. So my mom was like, "We'll teach you fried rice. That's a crowd pleaser." But when I got out of university, my first job was working in the restaurant business, doing marketing for restaurants. And so I learned a lot about food systems and sourcing, and became really passionate about that, and supporting farmers markets and everything. And I think I started learning to cook that way by just getting really psyched about ingredients. Since then, it's become a lot of like exploring my own culture, which I have a whole complicated relationship with.
Sure.
But trying to learn more about my heritage through food.
That's awesome.
What about you?
I come from an Italian American family, and so like there's always somebody in the kitchen. There's always like food on the table type of deal. But growing up, my parents were awesome and fantastic, but they were busy, so like there was a lot of wasn't time to learn to cook. I didn't start learning to cook until like later in life, actually. Like I could make the basics. I could make pasta. You know what I mean? I wouldn't burn pasta or burn cereal, you know what I mean? So didn't engulf in flames. In the past 3 years, I actually have started to learn like actually how to cook. So I guess cook cooler. And I had a friend suggest it's Jamie Oliver. It's 5 ingredients. I've set this to Lysa because he does vegan recipes too, which is great. But it's super easy way to learn how to cook, because he'll sit down and like explain to you like why things are, and you can make 5-star dishes really easily, which is really, really nice. And so, and of course I've learned through trial and error on a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff, which is I think that's the most important takeaway, is that you just got to keep trying and try different things. And yeah, so that's really, really good. So I know we talked about what you would bring to a game. What's your favorite thing to cook? Like what do you love cooking where you're like, heck yeah, I'm ready to cook this. It's so much fun.
I mean, I feel like my answer is really boring. Like I make lots of salads and soups and things, but my favorite thing, especially as we are like if folks follow me on Twitter, they know I'm really obsessed with our garden right now. We are gardening the heck out of our first spring in this house. So I just really love being inspired by ingredients, and kind of like the recipes you were mentioning, keeping things really simple but using really good ingredients. So it's really all about them. A kitty cat.
Yeah, Spanja.
I was laughing while you were talking, not at you, but at all of the suggestions for They Came from Beyond the Grave cookbook. Things like They Came from Beyond the Kitchen, They Came from Craft Services, seafood book, They Cooked from Beneath the Sea. It's just making me chuckle.
Yeah, Lysa and I actually did They Came from Beneath the Sea, a little quick one shot with Matthew Dawkins, and that was a lot of fun. Lysa was a secret mermaid.
Game.
Secret mermaid.
Yeah.
They also have They Came from Beyond. I always mess this up every time, because when the Kickstarter came out for They Came from Beyond the Grave, beyond the grave. I kept putting beneath. I'm like, they came from beneath the grave, and everyone's like, no, Meredith, and I'm like, okie doke. So, or they came from beyond the sea. But yeah, they also have the grave, which is fantastic, and that's like horror focused. And then they have oh my gosh, there's so much coming out from that, which is great. But yeah, we can definitely play horror because I know you love horror games. And that'll really be good. Eddie Fate says they came from beneath the beyond. I mean, basically was how I did that.
What is your favorite thing to cook,
my
or that
favorite
you've learned in the past few years?
Oh, good question. I have found that I'm more of a baker than a cook. I bake stuff. That's my big thing. My favorite thing, oh gosh, there's so many good things. Okay, I have two things. My favorite thing to bake is I have a lemon loaf that I make. It's
Yummy.
so good. But if you don't particularly like citrus, I can't make it for you because I like load that thing with lemon. Like it's so good. It's not tart, but it's very, very, very lemony, which I think is really good for like a summer
That's
day.
what you want in a lemon loaf.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, with or without frosting?
I do a small, I do like a kind of a drizzle. It's less of a like frosting, but more of a it's like a hardened liquid type of deal. I wouldn't necessarily call it frosting because it is clear.
More like a glaze.
So I mean, a glaze, that's the word. I'm sitting here being like, a clear frosting. It's a glaze. Thank you, Lysa. This is why you're here.
A watery frosting. Yum.
Do you have the lemon loaf recipe? I sure do. I will send that over in a second. Yes, a watery frosting. It's really good. My favorite thing to cook is biscuits. Let me think.
I
not
thought
biscuits.
your answer was biscuits.
No, like biscuits. Like darn it. I'm trying to think. There is. Oh gosh. It's a Jamie Oliver recipe, which is really, really good. It is pesto wrapped chicken, but it's pesto, and then you wrap it with puff pastry strips.
Ooh.
And then you pop it in the oven, and then the strips get like whatever, and then you make blistered tomatoes and green beans for the side. It is so good.
Delicious. Good combo.
It is a good combo. Yeah. I love blistered tomatoes. I'm not a huge fan of tomatoes, but I love blistered tomatoes. They're so good.
Okay, follow-up question.
Ready.
What RPG character in any system would bring that food to like a character inspired potluck like the person in chat mentioned?
Oh my gosh. Who would bring the chicken or the lemon loaf?
Either one. What do you pick?
I would say lemon loaf. I haven't really played D&D in my life, and I just started recently and I'm playing a druid, and I think that she would absolutely bring lemon loaf because she's lawful good and she's kind and she just loves doing nice things for people, and I think like lemon's such a summery sunshine type of taste to it, so definitely that. What about you, Lysa?
So I feel like my answer is also druid because my food was like garden inspired meals.
Yeah.
Are druids is this because we're having this conversation that our foods are druid inspired, or are druids like very much like a cooking class? What do you think?
I can think they would be a very good cooking class, and like even relating it to Onyx Path, I mean, Mage the Awakening has Thyrsus, which is my favorite. I have a tattoo on my left leg of the Thyrsus, who are very much that nature animal based. You know what I mean? Like, and so like, yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It's okay to be nature based. Is where I'm at.
Yeah. And that's true.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Like there's that I'm totally blanking, but in D&D there's a spell that's like a whole feast. And I think that's a druid spell. Yeah. I could be totally wrong, and it's like, surprise, it's a cleric spell.
That's
someone
fine.
In chat will correct
someone
me,
will.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one other thing to say, which is unrelated to anything except I'm just talking to my friend Meredith. But have you heard the new Lorde song? It's so sunny. It makes me think of you. You
Oh
should
my
listen to it.
gosh,
It's called
Lisa.
Solar Power. It's
Oh my gosh, you're
yeah.
so sweet
You're
to
you
me.
talking about your lemon loaf reminded
You're
me.
so
Yeah.
sweet.
It just
Oh,
came
you're
out
so
yesterday. So
sweet.
good. Unrelated to Onyx Path in any way.
Yeah. I love it. Oh, that's so sweet. I'm gonna check that out. Everyone should check that out.
Yeah,
Everyone, that's fine.
we just pause the stream and quietly listen to a YouTube video.
Just pull it up, yeah.
If you were trying to share your lemon loaf recipe, I think the chat stripped the link out. It's looking
Oh
like asterisks
no.
for me, so you might need to send it to a mod.
Auto
Someone with a
mod.
sword.
Your message is being checked by the mods. Mods have allowed your message. Happy chatting. And then it's a person with a little wrench.
Oh,
Awesome.
still looks like stars for me.
Well, I will post that on my Twitter. So y'all can go on my Twitter and check that out. And we'll definitely do that. So yeah, so we have a little bit more time. So let's loving talking about food. It's so good. What is the best meal you ever had of your life?
Okay. The best. Oh, this is so hard because there's meals where like the food was really, really good, but I also feel like food is such a cultural experience. It's also about like sitting and having good company and everything. I will say one standout meal is so I now live in Seattle, but I used to live in New Jersey. And one aspect of what convinced me to move to the Pacific Northwest was a trip to Portland, where I ate all over the Portland vegan scene. And the meal I remember the most are these raw vegan nachos from Blossoming Lotus, which is still open. It was like 7 years ago when I went the first time. Blossoming Lotus. They are like, I feel like it's really hard for people to comprehend what I mean by raw vegan nachos and it being the best nachos in my entire life. Like those ideas don't compute. So everyone just go to Portland right now. Stream OnyxPathCon on your phone and go eat those nachos immediately.
Immediately.
And when I moved to a few years later to Seattle, I took my roommate to Portland and we had those nachos. And then very recently, driving through Portland, I told my husband, these nachos brought me to the Pacific Northwest and I met you. So we have to share these nachos now.
Oh,
and
that's
we
so
had
sweet.
those. Yeah. So every time I've been to Portland, I've had them and they're so delish.
So tell me like more about them. Like what is it?
Okay,
like what's
yeah.
on it?
So the chip itself is like packed with flavor. They make them in-house and they like dehydrate a bunch of vegetables. So there's like dehydrated tomato and jalapeno. And basically it's almost kind of like they dehydrated all the ingredients in salsa and made a chip out of it. And then on top of that, they've piled like fresh guacamole and like this vegan cheese sauce and stuff. So there's flavor on top of flavor. Again, having difficulty talking because now I'm drooling. And they taste as flavorful or honestly more flavorful than nachos do. And they've got the satisfying crunchy texture with all the sauces on top. And you feel awesome after instead of gross.
Which is good.
Which
also
is better.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool. That's so rad. I love it.
What about you? Bestest meal.
Bestest meal. I'm actually looking it up because I'm trying to see if I can get so there's a place in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I usually go with Erica Fassett, who is a freelancer for Onyx Path and does some incredible stuff. Has done Vampire, has done Scion, has done everything. It's a place called Brewery Vivant. It is a brewery. It's inside an old church. Which is really, really cool atmosphere because like they have the stained glass windows still, like it's still, in there. My absolute favorite thing from them, I know what it is. Did they take it off the menu? Nope, it's springtime risotto. So it is chopped asparagus, Pebble Creek mushroom, Parmesan, arugula, cashew pesto, lemon zest, lemon gel, and then a big red butter that says contains gluten. It is So good.
Sounds amazing.
I had never had risotto before, like surprisingly, like all my life. And then I was like, oh, I'll try this. And like, it is dope. It is so, so good. So if you are in the area, I highly, highly recommend it. That's probably the best dish I've ever had. It's one of the slowest dishes like I've ever eaten because I didn't like want it to end. Like I just was like, I took like little, I was like, not that like when I eat, I like, freaking, just scarf it. Like, but like
But
I
you
was
tried
like,
to
okay.
savor it.
Yeah, but it took me a really like I was just like because I was just so good and it was so rich. You know what I mean? It was delicious and like I love asparagus. Like if you put any asparagus on anything, I'll eat it. It's one of my favorite foods. So that's super, super good. And yeah, I love that.
Do you make risotto yourself now?
No, my husband does.
Okay.
I haven't yet. Like it's one of those things I'm like, oh, I want to learn how to do risotto. We have literally like a box of it, like just sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, both of us being from Italian American families, we have pasta, olive oil, and red sauce consistently on hand, and garlic. We go through a sleeve of garlic a week because it's so good. So yeah, that's probably one of my favorite spices on things. Spices, Lisa, what is the most used spice that you do?
I feel like it constantly changes because I'll get really attached to one thing and then get a little sick of it and want a different flavor.
Yeah.
But I'd say what I've used the most consistently in my lifetime of cooking would be smoked paprika, probably.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's real good.
Yum. But I guess I don't think of garlic as a spice because it's like a thing
Yeah,
instead of
it's
like a powder. But
yeah,
I guess if we're counting it as a spice, then garlic.
yeah, garlic and
Probably.
everything.
Yeah, oh man, I'm like thinking about what I'm gonna make after this because now I'm hungry again.
No, it's okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, I grew up with it was pepper and garlic because I grew up a kid of the 80s, which a lot of parents were like, don't put salt in anything. You know what I mean? Like, don't ever put salt in anything. Don't ever put any fat in anything, and olive oil is amazing. It goes good with everything. So, yeah, I've expanded a lot. We now have like a spice cabinet and we have tons of spices for all sorts of different things, including black garlic, which is really, really good. You like add that into your like eggs when they're done or add it into your, salad when it's done. It's just kind of like it's like of course it's like a darker spice essentially. Like it gives it a little bit of a like smokier texture, which is really good.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, I'm gonna have to figure out where I can get black garlic. I want to call out this comment in chat that I feel with my soul, which is Terraria for Life says, measure garlic with your heart.
Yeah. You put in as much garlic as your ancestors allow you to.
Yeah, I like at least double the amount of garlic, if not just put a whole head of garlic into things, honestly.
When I was learning to cook, my friend Leia was cooking and I was like, hey, can I help out? And she was like, yes. I want to call it hot dog was really quick because I said I use a lot of Penzi spice mixes. And Lisa, if you haven't gotten Penzi's, we will talk after the show.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, I just want to make sure. Any person with a pulse, I'm like, do you know what Penzi's is? Like, do you want to? Okay, I'll send you stuff. You want? I'm like, their taco seasoning, their Northwood seasoning. Like, that's me. Like, oh, Penzi's is so good. Point. So she was like, I was like, can I help? And she's like, yeah. And she's like, can you cut me up two pieces of garlic? Okay. So in my head, I was like, oh, she means 2 bulbs. And I put 2 bulbs in the recipe and she was like, oh, no. I meant like 2 cloves. And I was like, oh, okay. It tasted great. I just want to let everyone know it did not ruin the dish. So, but that was like, I had that moment too. Cause she comes from a background that doesn't, I like use like a ton of garlic. So she's kind of had to adapt to me, like where I'm just like, put more garlic. If it says 2 cloves, it's 2 bulbs, bud. Like,
Squeaky McFroggerton in chat is like 2 pieces, ... to sample
to make sure that they taste good. Like, yeah, that's always double it. Always double it.
Yeah. Same with vanilla extract.
Oh, always double
In
vanilla
baking,
extract.
double. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen recipes where someone's like, I've already doubled the vanilla extract in this recipe.
Yeah, like because no
so
one
like
does.
don't double it again.
Yeah, because no one doesn't like do that. That's the thing
Yeah.
is like I feel like I think that's the one thing I don't measure besides garlic is vanilla extract. Like it'll be like, a teaspoon and I'm like, yeah, that looks good. Like, it's such a good thing. So
Mhm.
yeah. 2 strings of garlic, the Onyx Path says. Like, oh, it's so good.
Mhm.
It's so delicious. So all right, we are coming to 1:00. We're gonna go like a couple minutes over while we close up. We want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you so much for hanging out with us and talking to us about food and talking to us about community content. And of course, thank you, Lysa, so much for being here with me. It was a wonderful morning that I got to spend with you. So I really appreciate it. Lysa, yeah, where can people find you?
Well, if you're more interested in Dungeon Masters Guild stuff, you can follow them over on Twitter and Instagram at DMs_guild, or just go to dungeonmastersguild.com, dmsguild.com. Either one will take you there. But if you want to follow me personally, that's so sweet. You can follow me everywhere at Lysa Penrose. That's Lysa with a Y. I'm most active on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube right now. And there will be some TTRPG stuff, but also witchy stuff. And lately I've been posting a lot of fashions. So if you just want to see me wear different dresses, give me a follow.
Yeah, Lysa's fashion sense is absolutely incredible and adorable, and I love it so much. And your garden updates. Do you have any projects coming up that you can talk about or anything you're excited about?
I do have my second RPG that I'm releasing that I haven't really talked about so much publicly yet. I want to do an announce, but it's stuck in the editing phase right now. So if you want to hear more about a ghost sort of seance vibe game, then give me a follow as well to hear more about that when I'm ready to talk about it.
I will say, having play tested it, it is one of it's. I was going like this because I was like, oh, it's so good. It is an incredible game that I was very fortunate to beta test with Lysa, and I literally, when it comes out, I'm just going to scream the entire time. I'll be like, everyone needs to buy this book. It's so good. And from it just it's a great game to just pick up with somebody or multiple people, and it's so good. Oh, it's so good. We cried a lot. It was good. Yeah, good cry though.
Yeah. If you want to cry,
Yeah.
if you want games that make you feel bad.
I went into this being like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like beta test with my friends, and then like at the end of it, I was like, everything is so nice, and like we of course did it during the middle of a work day, so I had to like just
rein it
in. Oh goodness, yeah. So awesome. You can find me at Meredith Gerber on Twitter, Meredith A. Gerber on Instagram, and meredithgerber.com. Yeah, that's probably the biggest places you can find me. Of course, you can check out Drive-Thru RPG. If you are a publisher or creator, we do have a Discord you can check out as well, and we would love to talk to you. And speaking of Drive-Thru RPG, once again, Onyx Path has dropped not one, not 2, but 14 ding dang PDF bundles. I love that you went off screen. You're so cute. But yeah, 14 ding dang PDF bundles. And that will be happening this weekend. Also, Indie Press Revolution. There are select books, screens, and dice for 50% off. Dystopia Rising Evolution and select Pugmire Monarchies of Mao PDFs are in the post-apocalypse. I wanted to say apocalyptic, and then I saw the SE, and I'm like, apocalypse. Apocalypse sale at Drive-Thru RPG. There's a lot of really, really good titles in that sale. I highly recommend it. Yeah, and then of course, absolutely check out the convention. It's going to be so flippin' good. And there's so many good panels and actual plays. And Lysa, can you remind people, you say you have another panel? Right?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be back tomorrow at 4:30 Eastern playing an awesome game, Trinity Continuum Anima. And then Sunday at 2:30 Eastern, I'm going to be back for a community content panel.
Awesome. And you're going to love Anima. I'm so excited for you.
We did a session 0, so I got to play it, and I really
Yay.
liked
Oh,
it.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. I can't wait. That's so cool. So yeah, definitely check that out. Check out Onyx Path, of course, on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, the Onyx Path that will definitely have those updates for you on what will be happening this weekend. And yeah, thank you so much again for joining us. Chat, you have been fabulous. Lysa, you have been wonderful. And a big shout out to our friends at Vorpal Tales as well, who is powering this right now, and really appreciate all the tech wizardry. We appreciate you. And yeah, that's all that we got the time for. And hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Happy
Yay.
OnyxPathCon.
Happy